Welcome to Matchday Live, where coming up we've got a double helping of Premier League action as champions Manchester City face Everton and Tottenham take on Leeds. But we start with the big news from Old Trafford, where 2.5 hours ago Manchester United sacked manager Ole Gunnar Solskjaer after their 4-1 defeat at Watford yesterday, the club's 5th defeat in 7, to leave them 7th in the table, some 12 points behind the current leaders Chelsea. At 10:30 a.m. local time, the club released this statement. It says the following: Manchester United announces that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has left his role as manager. Ole will always be a legend at Manchester United, and it's with regret that we've reached this difficult decision. While the past few weeks have been disappointing, they should not obscure all the work he's done over the past 3 years to rebuild the foundations for long-term success. Ole leaves with our sincerest thanks for his tireless efforts as manager and our very best wishes for the future. His place in the club's history will always be secure, not just for his story as a player, but as a great man and manager who gave us many great moments. He'll forever be welcome back at Old Trafford as part of the Manchester United family. Michael Carrick will now take charge of the team for forthcoming games, while the club looks to appoint an interim manager until the end of the season. I'm delighted to be joined in the studio by Tim Sherwood and Alan Shearer. Gents, only one place to start. And your reaction then, Alan? Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is no longer at Manchester United. Not surprised, particularly with the current results and performances, more importantly, I think, because of that. I was surprised that he'd lasted this long. But he's not the only problem, I don't think, at Old Trafford. Yeah. I think when you read the statement, I think that sort of sums up where Manchester United are. I agree with what they said in terms of for where he took over the football club to where they ended up last season, getting them to second. There was a huge improvement. But the last couple of months have been a real struggle, and it's been a hard watch looking at them. But I'm amazed they haven't got a plan. When you sack a manager, normally you take time to weigh up your options, to look where the club wants to go, who they want to appoint. There were managers available, i.e. Conte. He would have, I'm sure, been interested in that job. That moved on. So now they put a statement out to say they're putting a caretaker manager in charge who's been part of a problem. Yeah. Then they're going to put an interim manager in until the end of the season. I think it's all very, very messy. Tim, is there an air of inevitability about this news?
There is, yeah. I'm with Al. I'm surprised it took so long. I thought after the debacle against Liverpool, you know, the emotion of losing against a huge rival there at Old Trafford, then Man City go to Old Trafford and give them a footballing lesson. They never decided to act then. There was an international break. There was a couple of weeks there to make a decision, and they never did it. So I felt like Ole was untouchable then. I thought, well, it can't get any worse, can it? Until they turned up at Vicarage Road yesterday. And a team who had just been promoted, who were really struggling for some form, have got the new manager in Ranieri themselves, and they get beat dramatically yesterday. From start to finish, they got dominated by a Watford side. And the capitulation towards the end was so bad, so bad. I mean, it was an embarrassing defeat. Now, it was almost inevitable, and afterwards you see Ole walking towards the crowd, and with his hands up, it was almost a resignation in my eyes. I felt it was a really bad look for a manager, because as players look at you as a manager, you're the leader. You have to lead by example, and you have to look like you want to roll your sleeves up and have the fight for the football club. And after that performance, that was me. I couldn't wait to get into that dressing room and start throwing right-handers to my players, because that was an absolute disgrace, what we saw from his players yesterday. I mean, this didn't help. Maguire, look, just gets turned over. Tom Cleverley was outstanding all day. You know, an academy player. Yeah. Josh King, an academy player, also scores against his old side. But that didn't help going down to 10 men. But it wasn't good enough. And the Man United fans, obviously, you know, they told Ole Gunnar Solskjaer they was of their frustrations after the game.
Alan, do you think the players down tools for their manager?
Some of them did. Yeah,
do you?
I do, absolutely. I thought that performance yesterday told everyone that they no longer wanted Ole as manager. And it really hit home when I see the pain and the hurt that Ollie was going through. Then Harry Maguire does what he does and gets the red card. Then Ollie taps him and says thanks very much when he walks off. Then he's going to say, he's tapping all his players on the back to say, come on. Then he taps, and then you see the Bruno Fernandes, and don't just blame the manager. Well, yeah, I get that. I understand that. It's the players also. But if the players really, really, really wanted Ollie to stay as manager, they would have started running around from the first minute. They wouldn't have been bullied. They wouldn't have been losing every single tackle from the first minute like they did against Watford. So when Bruno says it's not just the players, well, you should have done something about that in the 90 minutes beforehand.
All right, let's get another perspective on this big news then from Manchester. Owen Hargreaves, formerly of Manchester United, of course, former teammate of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's as well. Owen, good to see you. First of all, then, your reaction. The gents here say there's kind of been a while in coming. Is that the way that you see it, that Ole's no longer in charge at United?
Yeah, I think we all agree. I think they had to stop bleeding at some point. You know, it was inevitable that it was coming. It's just a matter of when. I think they, you know, Tim mentioned the international break. I think they hoped they could get there and maybe it would look different. And if anything, you know, the Liverpool game was a disaster. The City game was arguably worse, even the scoreline wasn't. But the Watford game was actually worse because, you know, at least those two teams are going for a title. And, you know, when Ole got back in the summer with Varane and Sancho and Ronaldo, everybody thought, right, United have a chance now, personnel-wise, to compete with the best teams in the Premier League. You know, they finished second last year. Can they take one more step? You know, and I think now after 12 games, you can easily say, no, you know, they're not in a position to compete for the Premier League title. They'd be fortunate to get into the top four. I think they're 6 points off fourth place. Champions League is an absolute must. And only two teams in the division have conceded more goals. You know, so if you're looking at, you know, Man City, Chelsea and Liverpool, and they're the ones you're going to compete for the title race, and United conceded as many goals as all three combined, then you know that you have a lot of issues. And I just thought the attitude of the players yesterday was embarrassing. I feel for Ole because actually it needed to stop. You know, it needed all the negativity around him. It needed to change, and they needed to make a change because the performance weren't good enough. So I feel for Ole. Everybody loves him. Everybody wanted him to work out. Yeah. It's not working out, and you had to make a change.
Owen, he was given this new contract only a few months ago, and of course he spent big in the summer transfer window on some big names. Are you surprised at the speed with which it went so wrong for him this season in particular?
Yeah, I think everybody is surprised. I mean, actually, if you've watched, I mean, I've seen every game they played this season in the Premier League and in the Champions League. I'll probably say there's been one good performance in all of them, that was against Leeds. Even the Newcastle game where they won 4-1, Cristiano's first one at Old Trafford, you know, Newcastle had chances in the game, you know, so every game they haven't had control of. They've conceded far too many goals. Only two teams in the division have conceded more. You know, that can't be. You know, that's not a team that we thought was going to be a title contender. So, you know, the fact that it's gone so quickly, I think it's a surprise. But you wonder, you know, I think Al mentioned about that, the whole club and the level of the issues that they have, you know, at the top of the club, the management, you know, obviously all those players, Ole, that they signed, you know, because the balance of the team still doesn't look right. The midfield certainly doesn't look anywhere near right. You know, fullback issue is still something there. So I think the club need to get a structure in place. It's not just about Ole. He did a good job getting to the place that they are, that they actually have a team to compete with the best teams in the division, which they never had for a long time under Van Gaal and Mourinho and under David Moyes. So they need to get some football structure in there. A manager, you know, I'd love to see somebody like Luis Enrique go in there, know what it's like to manage a big football club. Had good success with Spain, managing a Spanish team that isn't at its best, but gets into a semi-final, plays good attacking football. And I think they need to get somebody in terms of recruitment, you know, so that everybody's on the same page. Tottenham just did that after all the issues that they've had. And I think United needs to do that. They need to look at the whole structure of the football club. Ole's going to be the scapegoat for this, but a lot of people that should take the fall as well.
Owen, you mentioned the signings that came in the summer there in Varane, Sancho and Ronaldo. With regards to the latter, do you think Ole wanted and needed him? I
don't think they were all Ole's from what I've heard. You know, I think obviously it's hard. You can't say no to Cristiano just because he has such an impact. But, you know, all of a sudden the intensity to which they work, does that affect that? I think Varane is an amazing signing. Yeah. I think Jadon actually for the first time in the United shirt looked really good yesterday, playing on the right-hand side, whipping balls in. But if you think about it, I mean, just look at some of the signings there. Harry Maguire, 80 million, you know, the defence, Wan-Bissaka. You know, the amount of goals that United have conceded is absolutely unbelievable considering the money they've spent on that back four. So I think right now they got to get on the same page, Al. You know, and obviously you could. I think it's impossible to say no to Cristiano Ronaldo, especially if he was going to go to Manchester City. But they got to get on the same page. You know, even Van der Beek coming off the bench yesterday, he's played 19 minutes, I think, in the Premier League. All of a sudden, he's the one to save Ole. Second half, he plays absolutely fantastic. Created so many opportunities for United, but he hasn't even had a kick. So they've spent more money than anyone since Ole's been there. Yeah. And after 12 games, you couldn't say they're anywhere near competing for the title. Whereas if you look what Thomas Tuchel's done at Chelsea in that short space, an incredible group of players, won the Champions League, best defence in the Premier League. That's the impact it needs now. Somebody to come in, a master tactician like Klopp, Tuchel, Pep. That's what United need. That's what the club deserves, what the fans deserve. And that's where the board should be looking. Stop looking at these short-term appointments. Go get somebody in that's going to make a huge difference.
That's often been talked about, Owen, hasn't it? That outlay, spending more than £400 million under Solskjaer in his 3 years in charge. And they haven't been able to close that gap on their City rivals. How much of a missed opportunity has that been?
No, I think they have closed the gap a little bit. I think personnel-wise, for the first time, I think, for Tim and I, we've been looking at United for 4 or 5 years, and they've been nowhere near competing with City and Liverpool. On paper, I think you could look at United this season and say, right, they can compete with them. But the problem is they didn't have a clear style of play in possession. They had no clear plan out of possession in terms of press. You look at all the best teams in the division, you know exactly how they're going to play. You know how they're going to line up. You know how they're going to pass the ball. United have no clear idea on how to pass the ball. And I was at both games against City and Liverpool, and the fans turned on the team a little bit in both games when they got so nervous from the fact the way the boys were passing the ball in the back, from De Gea to Maguire to Lindelof and into Wan-Bissaka and to Shaw. And it unsettled the crowd because they could tell the players were nervous. And that can't be. We know how City are going to pass the ball, and Liverpool and Chelsea. United need that structure. They need a coach who's going to come in and go, right, this is how we're going to keep the ball. And when we lose it, we're either going to press high, we're going to drop deep, or we're going to be compact. But we need something. And we saw it in that Watford game. The way the boys just stopped playing, I thought it was a disgrace. You know, we've all been in teams where managers are under pressure. I never played for the managers. I played for my teammates. You play for the shirt, for the fans. The manager, you don't want him to get the sack, but the boys needed to do more yesterday. And I made the point. If they wanted to stay, they would have done more yesterday. So I think they got to get somebody in there that's going to demand that the players put a shift in. There's a philosophy in possession, out of possession. If they do that, I don't think they'll be far away, because I think talent-wise, there's a lot of good pieces of the puzzle there.
Yeah. Tim, interesting. Owen clearly has a lot of sympathy for the position that Solskjaer finds himself in. I know you both share that. In some ways, has this coaching experience or lack of top-level coaching experience been exposed by those elite managers around him in the Premier League?
Yeah, but them elite managers in the Premier League, a lot of them Man United would have the opportunity to go and get. But they want to give Ole an opportunity. Ole can't complain that they haven't given him a chance. They certainly have. 3 and a bit years at the football club and not won a trophy. Who keeps your job at Man United? We've seen other managers in the past lose their job with that sort of record. It's not about winning games, it's about winning pots there at that football club. And where do they turn to now? I think when you look at the statement, the last 3 lines of the statement are damning, in my opinion. We're going to put Michael Carrick in charge. He needed help, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. If he wasn't good on the training field, he needed help. You've got Kieran McKenna, who's a rookie coach. You've got Michael Carrick, who's a rookie at coaching as well. Obviously a fantastic footballer, we know that. Mike Phelan, who's there, who everyone knows never coached anyway, was just an observer. Good for the group, but they needed someone who could put the ideas of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer onto the training field and have a playing identity like Owen's talking about, out of possession and in possession. Where do they turn to now? They're going to go to an interim manager, Michael Carrick for the time being, then an interim manager till the end of the season. It's a mess. It's not Manchester United, one of the biggest clubs in the world. For me, keep him in charge until the end of the season. If you're going to do that, what's the point of keep chopping and changing? Keep him there till the end of the season and then go and get a manager. Identify now who you want to get for the end of the season and go and get him.
Alan, have the board been caught by surprise here?
I don't know how they could have, but that's what we keep talking about, was a lack of plan, a lack of identity. And it's a really messy situation for them now. I was really surprised at the statement. I totally understand and get that they had to fire the manager, a decision had to be made. But what I don't get is that they were taken by surprise and it all of a sudden, it just happened last night or this morning. Surely they must have been thinking about, when they look at the performances, when they look at results over the past 6 to 8 weeks. They must have been thinking, and so, OK, if we have to, where do we go from here? And it looks to me as if it's just taken them by surprise, amazingly.
Owen, where is the succession planning here for United?
There isn't any, you can tell. You know, if they would have had one, you know, if they probably could have had somebody like Conte. But I just think they need to look for somebody that's got great experience in the game. You know, go back to Frank Lampard did a good job at Chelsea. You know, obviously took over in the transfer embargo, knew the academy with Jody Morris. That worked. You know, and I think for United, obviously, Ole fixed a lot of things that were broken there. And now United have a team that can actually compete, but it needs an elite tactician like Thomas Tuchel. You look at what he's done to that group of players. Defensively, they were poor under Frank Lampard at times. They're unbelievable right now. Every piece of the puzzle that slots in there plays fantastic. That's what United need. And I see somebody like Luis Enrique who could do that fantastic. I'm not sure about Zidane's English, even though from winning the Champions League, that would be great. I just think somebody detailed on the football pitch and demanding. That's what United need somebody, you know, this group of players has gone through a lot of good managers, by the way. And David Moyes, who's flying at West Ham. Louis van Gaal, who's flying with Holland as well. Did unbelievable throughout his career. And Jose Mourinho. So at some point, they need somebody to come in here, clear plan, clear structure. If you're not on board, get out, go play somewhere else. And I could see somebody like Luis Enrique, who's had success at a club like Barcelona that is incredibly demanding, if not more demanding than Manchester United. Success with Spain, and with the position he's in managing Spain, maybe he has the opportunity to come over right now. Ten Hag, I think that's unrealistic while he's managing Ajax. Zidane, you know, I think it might be a little bit of a pipe dream. So the board, and I'm not sure the board are up to it, need to find somebody like a Thomas Tuchel to come have that impact.
Of those on that list, Tim, for you, which one is the right fit?
The season. I think he'll win everything there.
Is that why you think perhaps they are biding their time until the end of the season to see whether he wins the Champions League with PSG? If he doesn't, then he might be more available.
For me, he knows the Premier League. He knows what it's all about. He managed at Tottenham and done a brilliant job to take them where they are. We've only seen since he's left the club what's happened to it. So he gets the best out of individuals. I think with a group of players, what Owen's talking about and what we can see with our own eyes there at Manchester United, they've got talented players. But I think you need a dominant manager, someone who's going to make them run around and want to go and work and get the ball back. You know, it's all right playing when the sun shines and there's no obstacles in the way. They all want to do that. We all wanted to do that. Unfortunately, you come up against obstacles and boundaries, what you need to get through as a footballer, and the tough times. And I don't think they've got enough character for that. And I think Pochettino, he will win now at PSG. He will win the league. He'll go close in the Champions League. And I think possibly his job's done there. Come back to the Premier League and manage a giant club like Manchester United.
It's a sad state of affairs when we're talking about trying to get a tune and a shift out of players who are on 300 or 400 grand a week. I mean, it's impossible to even think of that now happens. And that's exactly what happened yesterday at Watford. It's exactly what happened against Liverpool and against, I know they were outclassed, but you cannot go to Watford with their team, what they've got, the position that they're in, and be outfought, and lose every tackle, and it's impossible. So it was inevitable what was going to happen yesterday. But yes, we can talk about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and his limitations. The players have to take a long, hard look at themselves in the mirror, because ultimately they have cost the manager the job, because they had an opportunity yesterday to say, we want to keep him in a job. If we're going to get beaten, we're going to get beaten by going down with a fight and winning every tackle. And if it's going to be unlucky, then so be it. None of that happened yesterday. So they got the answer that they wanted, the players. They wanted rid of the manager because their performance told them that.
Yeah. What about the timing of this announcement? The fact that they've now got 11 games in the next 40 days... just on the back of a 2-week international break.
Well, yeah,
they could have made a clean cut, could they not?
That's again, when we go back to the lack of planning and the lack of ideas, that if a decision was going to be made, surely that decision should have been made 2 weeks ago. Yeah. Then the new manager coming in could have had time to work with the players, but clearly they didn't think it was going to happen. They didn't even know that they were even thinking about it or in trouble. The rest of the world did, because we were all talking about it.
Owen, Michael Carrick in temporary charge. I mean, this is some task now, isn't it? There's still 26 games left of this Premier League season, and they have to get Champions League football at the end of it.
You know what, Manish, we all love Michael Carrick. Amazing guy, great football player. But Tim mentioned, doesn't have any experience as a coach. You know, rumours about Darren Fletcher going there, great football guy. But, you know, it's unfair on those guys to go into Villarreal, who absolutely dominated United at Old Trafford. Villarreal away, Chelsea away, you know, Arsenal. That's not fair. I just don't think the club needs to be better at that in terms of, if you're going to sack Ole, like Tim said, if you don't have a plan, then keep him in there. Because he's got results in moments when they've been under pressure. So for Mike, I hope it goes amazing. It's a great opportunity for him. But the club need to look at themselves, how they put a young manager who's never managed one game in a position to go to an incredibly good team in Villarreal away and then Chelsea away. You know, you think about the managers, they'll be licking their lips. And what can a manager do in a few days and say, you know, try and get the boys, put a bit of shape in there and get a bit of effort, you know, get them to run around. But, you know, for a young coach, I think it's incredibly difficult to go in there. I hope it goes great because we all love Mike and the fans will stick with him. But the club shouldn't be putting a guy in charge, you know, that hasn't really managed a game before.
Yeah, fascinatingly put. Owen, thanks very much indeed, former United midfielder Owen Hargreaves. What this move also does do is put the pressure squarely on the shoulders of the players, who have now certainly put themselves in the firing line now, haven't they?
Yeah, but if they're playing for the biggest club in the world, they should be under pressure. You know, there's a lot of players who have gone to Manchester United in the past and not been able to crack it because it's too big a club. And I think they have got good players on paper. I think they are massively underachieving. They're not working as a group, first and foremost. You know, it's not about the individuals there. It's not about how many goals Ronaldo can come in and score. Bruno Fernandes, and we saw his numbers have dropped off on his assists and goals this season since Ronaldo's come. Just tells you it's a team full of individuals there. You know, are they defending well enough as a group? Have they got that sitting midfield player, which is key to the whole structure of any midfield? No, they haven't. I think they've got one and then ranks, but have they worked on that philosophy? Have they got a playing identity of how they want to go about it, out of possession, in possession? The answer is no. So it is an easy job to go and achieve that. But obviously, Ole made it look very difficult.
And having made the tough decision to dispense with the services of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, how big is this moment now for the United boardroom?
Oh, huge. But it's been like that for a while. They should have known what was coming. They should have had a plan in action ready to go. So, yeah, I keep going back to the statement and how messy it was, and I'm just amazed that they were all taken by surprise by the timing of it. And I think it was the right thing to do in terms of doing it for Ole, because it can't get any worse. You cannot see a performance again as bad as that they put in at Watford, where there was a lack of effort, there was a lack of tackle, there was a lack of fighting. All of those things that should be a basic for any professional footballer, let alone the superstars that Man United have got at their team. So, yeah, they were under pressure as well as the players.